episode of Post-Fades Cheesesteaks. Today's episode will be looking into the top 10 4-3 linebackers heading into the 2021 season. So that's, stand-up linebackers, no pass rushing, no edge rushers here.
Off the ball.
Off the ball. That would be the correct term, off the ball. So it'll be myself, Dakota, and Tim, the usual suspects today. So yeah, let's get right into it. We'll start off with our nominations, as this is our new thing. And Tim, what was your? Did you go first? What are your three? Do you have 3 nominations, 2 nominations? What are we working with?
All right, so I had a couple. I wanted to, I'm a sucker for history, and I look back at the past, looked at the list that I had last year.
Okay, fair.
But yeah, there was a couple guys that I had on my list last year that didn't make it this year.
Same.
One of them being Jalen Smith, Cowboys linebacker.
Yeah, he didn't even make my honorable mentions.
And you know what? I think it was more of I maybe got caught up in the fact that the Cowboys stunk, and then his, the buzz around him was kind of ruined by the fact that his team stunk last year. I had him 8 last year. He didn't make it this year. But he's also a Cowboy, so I don't even feel bad.
Him and Van Der Esch, they didn't have a good year this year. I think Van Der Esch was in and out with injuries, but Jalen was just really inconsistent and missing tackles and did not look like the elite linebacker from a couple years ago. So I
don't think you can say anyone involved with the Cowboys had a good year last year. I just, the whole team was a mess. Dak fell down, hurt the whole offense.
I mean, DeMarcus Lawrence is falling off the face of the earth. He was top 8, defensive end, and now he's a nobody. I don't know what's going on with him.
That's the Cowboy way. Is you cash in and then you're useless afterwards. That's basically what the Cowboys do. But yeah, he was tough. I mean, Micah Parsons on that team.
I was going to say he might be on the list next year.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Another guy I had, he was also on my list last year, was number 10 last year, and I actually wanted to put him in my honorable mention. Didn't have him there first, but there was some recent news about him, which I got to say, I love the recent news about him.
Yeah.
Joe Sherbert, he went from the Jaguars to the Steelers.
I did see
That's
that.
a great move for him and the Steelers.
Classic Jaguars signing a guy to a huge contract and then getting rid of him the next year. They do it all the time.
You wonder why do certain teams constantly suck every year when there's high draft picks involved, there's a salary cap, it's a parity league. And then you realize that there's certain teams that keep making the idiotic mistakes over and over again. And the Jaguars trading Joe Sherbert to the Steelers for a 6th-round pick is another example of them just making a mistake over and over and over again. So, I think I like him a lot this year. Obviously, he didn't have a great year this past year. No one on the Jaguars did. But, yeah, him on that defense, I know they lost Dupree, but Minka's still there. You still have TJ Watt. You still have Tuitt. You still have Hayward. Devin Bush is coming off the injury. I think that's the perfect match in heaven for them because they've got an elite pass rush. They got playmakers in that secondary. They need a guy that can play some run defense and just be a linebacker and just make tackles. And I think it's a great fit for both involved. And then speaking of another Jaguar, this guy's just incredibly inconsistent and tough to put him in a top 10 when his team went 1-15. Super athletic, but Miles Jack is another guy who there's another guy, my number 10 guy, I have the same criticisms about him as I do as Miles Jack. Okay. It's just the one guy was, in the AFC Championship game coming off a Pro Bowl. The other guy was on a 1-15 team and didn't do much. So that's why one's an honorable mention. The other one's number 10. So Miles Jack is just incredible athlete. He's just inconsistent, hasn't put it together. But those are my honorable mentions.
Fair enough. I had Miles Jack also in my honorable mentions. I really wanted to put him in the top 10, but
you want to. He's an athlete. He's a good player, but he hasn't put it together yet.
Yeah, he's
consistently.
Yeah, I would say he's probably the best defender on that team now. I really
also not saying much at 1-15.
Yeah, but I mean they have some decent pieces around him, but I like Miles Jack a lot. He's got some potential. Zach Cunningham of the Texans. He's led the league in tackles the past 2 years in a row. So I felt, Zach Cunningham. Felt weird not to put him on.
Yeah, I'm surprised because you think of linebackers, you think of tackling machines, and the guy's led the league in tackles. He's literally been a tackling machine. I know he's on a bad team, and I just killed Miles Jack for being on a bad team, but he is on my list. I'm actually surprised you didn't put him in your list. Just off the fact that the guy just tackles. That's what he does. I don't know if he brings much more to the table, but he tackles.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he was in and out multiple times, so it was tough. Another player that I had in my list last year that I'm a big fan of, but I think based on how he played last year and was pretty inconsistent, had a lot of missed tackles. He was part of, I think, like 8 or 9 touchdowns given up. Jermaine Edmonds, he was really tough for me to keep off the list because I had him, I think, like 7 or 6 last year. But I think he'll rebound. I think he'll be fine. And it was just last year was a little rough for him. So those 3. And then I have a rookie from last year that I have high hopes for in Kenneth Murray. I think he played well for the Chargers, and I could see him taking a huge step this year. So those are my honorables.
So I'm just gonna take the torch right from you because you actually mentioned my number 10 guy in your honorable mentions. And no fault to you. I actually couldn't agree with you more. Obviously, you brought up some of the stats that I was going to mention with him, but my number 10 is Tremaine Edmonds. Again, like I said with Miles Jacks, like he is an elite athlete. He's 6'5", 250. He runs, he flies. The guy doesn't run, he flies. He's super consistent. He's never played less than 15 games in any season in his 3-year career. He's a 2-time Pro Bowler. You did mention the missed tackles and the touchdown surrendered, and I saw that too. And it's hard to ignore, but at the same time, he's very young. He's going to his 4th season. I like that combination of him and Matt Milano, who they just signed to an extension.
Another good linebacker.
Matt Milano did not make my list, but he is a guy that I considered for my list. But he's a very good linebacker. But Edmonds, you know what? I think he's going to keep getting better. It's the stuff that, like you said, the missed tackles and touchdowns, that stuff you can clean up with coaching. He's got great coaching in Buffalo. I think he's on a good defense that's going to get better. I ultimately think he's going to get better. So I have higher hopes going forward with him than I think, he's shown so far. But, we're still talking about a guy that has production. He's been a 2-time Pro Bowler. He's had stats. He's been on a good team. He went for over 100 combined tackles all 3 years in the league. He had 2 sacks last year. He's versatile. Yeah. He's an elite athlete. I like him on that defense. I also like the Bills a lot this year. They're one of my favorites, for Super Bowl contenders. And I think the defense taking a step forward, mostly with younger guys like him and Milano and Ed Oliver. I think they're going to have a very strong season. I'm optimistic on Edmonds. I'm not going to ignore the stats that you brought up. That's why he's at number 10. But I am optimistic for him. I think he's going to get better, and I'm confident that he's going to continue to improve. But from what I've seen so far, he's a physical freak, but also a very good linebacker. So I had him at number 10.
Yeah, I almost put him in just because I always have to have my Virginia Techs mentioned. But
I'm actually surprised you didn't. I was very surprised.
Yeah, I was surprised how, like, my top 6 was easy. It was like 7, 8, 9, 10. That was like, wow, all these players are really in the same range here. This is tough. But yeah. So my number 10, this is the guy I just couldn't decide on. But ultimately I took the Brandon Brooks approach.
Okay.
So I have Dante Hightower, number 10 from the Patriots.
Interesting. I was debating him. I left him off my list. But if he played last year, he would have obviously been on this list. Yeah. But I can't fault you for putting him on. So
yeah, so he didn't play last year because he opted out with COVID, or for COVID reasons. I look at it as just like he would have been in my top 10 last year had he not opted out, and he would have been in that like 10 to 5 range, like 6 or 7 probably. And it was pretty noticeable, when he the Patriots were hurting on defense without him in the middle. And I mean, he's either covering someone in the middle or he's rushing to shooting up the middle, getting pressures on the quarterback and stuff and blowing up the play. So he's a difference maker for that team. I think he'll return to form. I don't see why not, why he wouldn't. But yeah, he's the most important besides him and Gilmore, and then the, safety McCourty. They're the most important players on that team. So I had him at 10. Number 9, Tim, who are you looking at?
Yeah, no fault to you. I mean, he's a tough pick. The COVID guys are tough. I mean, looking back at our list last year, I had CG Mosley at 6, who didn't even play the year prior. So, obviously I gave him a little boost.
Yeah.
I didn't put Hightower on my list, but, I totally understand why you did. So no fault to you.
Fair enough.
I already kind of grilled you on this already a little bit. I'm surprised you didn't make your list. But so number 9, like when you say linebacker, you think of a tackling machine.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know 2 better words to describe another player like Zach Cunningham. Yeah. The guy is a tackling machine. He led the league with 163 combined tackles last year. You could say, I mean, I will hear the negatives about he does miss tackles every once. I think over the last 2 seasons, he had 45 missed tackles, which does sound like a big number. But you got to also factor in this guy had 163 combined tackles last year. That's 25% of his total in 1 year. When you're looking at 45 over the last 2 years, like, is it more of a product that he's always in the spot that he needs to be to make a tackle? And majority of the time he's going to make that tackle, but since he's always there are chances he's going to miss a tackle. I looked into more the optimism way and assumed that he's just always in the right position. Every once in a while he's going to miss one, but the guy he's rangy, he's instinctive, he's always in the right spot, he's always making plays. I could take the counter argument that he plays on a terrible team, which he does with the Texans, and there's not much on that defense. So someone's got to tackle a guy on defense, and he's probably the best one on there. But listen, you lead the league in any category in the NFL. The NFL is all the greatest athletes and football players on this planet. If you lead anything, any category that means something in the NFL, that is something to take note of. So he had a great last year. He led the league in tackles. I think he's going to keep doing what he's done. He's young. He's a good player. So I had him at number 9.
Yeah, I won't argue it. Like I said, he was in my honorable mentions because I was debating him, and he was him and another really young guy, 2 other young guys that I opted for instead. But I don't disagree with that. I think that's what I'm saying. It was hard for me to leave him off, but I just with Hightower being there, I figured swap in the.
I don't blame it. If I took Hightower, I just took him off just because he didn't play. So that's on that. I would have probably put him on.
All right.
Had I included him.
So my number 9 is someone who I left off my list last year, but I said was probably that like 11-12 guy. Had another great year. Played all 16 games. Had 2 interceptions. Second in the league in tackles. 139.
Look at you with stats.
Yeah.
Nice.
18 tackles for loss, very good. Now he plays for the Chicago Bears, Mr. Roquan Smith, number 9. I don't know about if that's he's undervalued or shouldn't be in the list.
Yeah, he's definitely on my list. I think I undervalued him a little bit here.
Okay. He's definitely rising up. I feel like I'm just waiting for him to be like, I guess it's hard for him to be the guy when there's another, big time linebacker there.
Well, yeah.
And Mr. Khalil Mack, but I don't know. I'm just waiting for him to like take full reins of that and just be like more explosive. But I mean, coverage wise, he's pretty, if not the best, one of the best coverage linebackers. So I'll give him credit there.
Oh yeah.
I don't really have any complaints from him. I just look at the other players I had ahead, and as you would say, that's who I would rather build my team around before. But
fair enough. I mean, as I know very well with listening to your nonsense all these weeks and all the people that listen to us. Anyone that hasn't played 10 years in the NFL, you pretty much hate them. So we do understand what the real reason is here, why Roquan Smith is so low. But I mean, if you ask any Chicago Bears fan, like find me a diehard off the streets of Chicago, considering Roquan Smith was a top 10 pick, I've got to say that I think any Chicago Bear fan would be happy with where he is at in his career right now. Considering how high he was drafted, the guy makes plays. You're right. He's not the guy, but Khalil Mack is one of the top 5 best players in the NFL arguably he's had, some down years, but arguably he's in that conversation. Sure. So it's tough for Roquan Smith to become the guy when that guy's already there. But yeah, like you said, He's got the tackling numbers. He's incredible in coverage. I do have him on my list. He's a little bit, higher up, and I think he should, especially because he's young, and I think he's getting better.
Yeah.
But hey, he's not a 10-year vet, so I understand why you didn't put him anywhere higher in your list. So I get it. I get it.
All right.
But we'll get to that soon enough, though. My next guy, well, I'm sure you'll have his top 3 guy because he's been in the league for quite a number of years.
Okay.
He was number 5 actually for me last year.
Oh.
And nothing against him. I think that other guys just exceeded him. He was number 5 this year in PFF overall. He was 3rd in run defense for PFF. And he was second team All-Pro. And again, there's nothing against him. And this is where me and you differ because you like the 10-year vets and I like the guys that are on the upward trend. I like to be a year early where you like to be a year late.
Shut the
So, I believe he's 32 years old, and I mentioned this stat with Zach Cunningham. Last 2 years, Zach Cunningham, who just led the league in tackles, had 45 missed tackles the last 2 seasons combined. This guy had 16 missed tackles over the last 2 years combined, which is just an outstanding number. He's so incredibly efficient. And since he's moved on to his new team where he's currently at, he has been nothing but a superstar. So I went with Demario Davis here.
So you just ripped me for Roquan being undervalued, and you just get shit on Demario Davis like that.
And listen, you know what? I agree. This is the one that killed me. And the problem is, and I'll get to it again, I'm sure you're tired of hearing it, but the Jason Hayward effect or the Vita Vea effect does play in a factor because 2 of the linebackers I have a little bit higher from him get a little bit boost for having a better year last year considering they won the Super Bowl. But I have nothing bad to say about Demario Davis. He's older. He's 32, so I don't know how optimistic I am about his future. But he's also the only player in the NFL with 300 tackles, 30 tackles for loss, 20 quarterback hits, and 10 sacks since 2018, which when he joined the Saints. And his career is going to be weird because before the Saints, he was no one knew him. Since he became the Saints, he reinvented himself. He's a superstar. And
I don't know where he was before he came to New Orleans.
I think he was on the Jets. On the Jets. I'm not confident about that, but it goes back to what I was saying. He went to the Saints and things just exploded. But yeah, nothing against him. Does he deserve to move back from 5 from last year? Probably not. But the guys that I have ahead of him I think had better years, and they gave me more reason to put him up a little higher. One of the guys being Roquan, but. Like I said, I like to be a year early where you like to be a year late. So I'm sure you'll have Davis higher than I did. And, I'll have Roquan higher than you do. But that's kind of the theme of this whole thing. I mean, so tell me who you got at number 7.
Number 7. You mean number 8?
Oh, I'm sorry. 8. I'm sorry. I apologize.
You're skipping over. You're just going to let me skip over Mr. Dionne Jones like that at number 8?
Oh, really? Mr. Dionne Jones. Oh, I don't know. He is not in my top 10. Didn't make my own mentions. Ooh. You know what? I'll let you get into it, but I think we're talking about a guy, and I rip Odell every time we mention his name about he lives off his past. I think Dionne Jones is the guy that lives off his past. But go on. Do your thing.
I mean, if that's what you want to say. I mean, I was just talking about, Roquan being one of the best coverage linebackers. Dionne Jones isn't no slouch either. He's up there as well with him. Honestly, this is like kind of taking a page out of your book with the Yumbles, but
look at you! You're finally listening.
No, him and Roquan, honestly, off the top of my head, probably the 2 best coverage linebackers in the league. He's so. A lot of what he does is just so smooth and nimble, and he was injured a couple times, coming up in the league because he was drafted in 2016, I believe.
I believe, yeah.
And I think last year I had him, let me double check, at number 10, just because I was worried about the injuries. But to my knowledge, he played a full season, 80-some tackles, getting after it. And the Vikings are a weird team. Like their secondary is okay. And then they have Grady Jarrett, phenomenal defensive tackle. But then, it's literally Deion Jones that taking up that whole middle of the field. Like that is his space. And I think he does a really great job of it. And I think as long as he stays healthy, he's going to keep pushing and getting better and better. It'll be interesting to see. So I believe he'll be playing more of the the Donta Hightower role because it's the new Falcons defense is going to be very Patriot based with their new coaching staff. So it'll be interesting to see how they use him because, I mean, like I said, I had Hightower on my list and they use him all over the field. So I'm excited to see what Jones is going to do. But yeah, I like his trending towards upwards. So had him in over Cunningham and Jermaine Evans. So
you made a good argument for him. I'll give you that. And listen, I'm all for the young guys, but
I know
some young guys, and I worry about this. Some young guys, they're really good right out of the gate, like Dion Jones was. And then you worry about them like, yeah, they're young and they got promise and potential and all that. But then you think when they're that good out of the gate, was that the best you've seen from them? And Dionne Jones, I can't help but say, sometimes I ask, have I seen the best of Dionne Jones already? I'll give you this. You are right about the fact that the Falcons defense falls apart when he gets hurt. He does get hurt, pretty often. But
it's like you're saying that, and then like the best we've seen of him was rookie year when he was healthy, and then the past 2 seasons he was hurt, and then this year he was healthy and played phenomenal. So,
yeah. Listen, I hear you. I hear what you're saying. I just listen. I'm not going to ignore the fact that he has got an injury history, and the fact that his team falls apart when he gets hurt is, you can make an argument that he's, that increases his value, but at the same time, do I want to build my team around a linebacker that when he gets hurt, my team falls apart? And maybe he set the bar too high. Maybe he did when he came out his rookie year, and I think they went to the Super Bowl that his rookie year there. But I haven't seen that level of production since his rookie year. And sometimes the young guys like that, you're like, am I waiting for something that's never going to happen? Have I seen the best of him already? And Dionne Jones, I'm not going to lie, is a guy that I feel like I'm not going to give up on him. He does have a bright future if he can stay healthy, but I'm not going to lie, I do wonder sometimes if I've already seen the best of Dionne Jones. With that said, I'm going to take a complete opposite turn of you. We're going back with another old guy.
Oh.
And this guy, he was let me double check. He was number 4 on my list last year. Again, nothing really.
You're making mistakes again. I know Jesus.
Nothing against him from last year. I just think other guys perform better than
these lists are such a Dakota and Tim list because these guys that you've had in your last 2, I have higher in mine, and because they're veterans, because they've proven it, and you have them. Go ahead. Who is disrespect? This
and
man.
Fine, you know what? But you know what? I look for the future and going into next year. And listen, the most important factor about my list is what I expect them to do next year. And obviously, I'm going to be a little bit more optimistic about the younger guys than I am older guys. Mm-hmm. But with that said, and honestly, you know what? The main argument I made last year with this guy when I mentioned him before was not even is he a top 10 linebacker, is he a Hall of Famer? Because, the main argument we made was he doesn't have a great, his trophy shelf isn't incredible. He doesn't have this, unbelievable trophy shelf. Is it really his fault though? Because if you figure about it, he was drafted the same year as a guy that's going to be near the top of both of our lists. I'm sure he was number 1 last year for all of us. And another, I think, is a first ballot Hall of Famer, Luke Keithley. He's played pretty much his entire career with Luke Keithley and Bobby Wagner in the same conference. So you know what? You don't get Pro Bowls, you don't get All Pros. That's why Levante David, who is my number 7, is 1-time Pro Bowler, 1-time All Pro, 1-time Super Bowl champ. And I think he would have a nicer trophy cabinet if it wasn't for the fact that, 2 first ballot Hall of Famers overlapped your career in the same conference. And I stuck to the argument that Levante David was a Hall of Famer last year. Obviously, he went on to win the Super Bowl this year, so I think that only makes his argument even stronger. But he's also at this point where he's a guy that I don't need to talk about last year. I'm just going to talk about his career. And when you total his numbers, let's put it this way. Since 2012, Levante David has 1,123 tackles. That's more than every human that has played football since 2012 besides Bobby Wagner, who was going to be very high on our list.
And he's your number 7?
Okay. A year early before I'd rather be a year early than a year late.
God.
He's got 129 tackles for loss since 2012, behind, again, 2 first ballot Hall of Famers, J.J. Watt and Aaron Donald. Mm-hmm. Don't get me wrong. He's a stud. I have nothing bad against the Sam. Obviously, listen, I'm all for the guys that, coming off the Super Bowl year. Unlike you, I consider a Super Bowl to be a huge individual accomplishment. I applaud all the individuals that are involved in winning a Super Bowl, because you can't have a bad year if you win a Super Bowl. Sure. It doesn't matter that Jason Hayward's worst year of his entire career came the year he won the World Series. Everyone just remembers the fact that he won the World Series. But he is 31 years old, and I'd rather be a year early than a year late. And he's in a good situation. I will admit that I moved him around a lot because I think he's in a great situation. We'll have another great year, and mostly because he's next to another guy that's, going to be on my list very shortly as one of his teammates. But I'm sure this kills you that I had two older guys at 8 and 7. But I stick to it, and no disrespect. I've been hammering the drum from Levante David to the Hall of Fame since last year, even though he's only got one Pro Bowl under his name. But he's a Hall of Famer. I stick to it. He had a great year. He's on a great team. I think he's gonna have a good year again. But he's my number 7.
All right. Fair enough. My number 7 is a guy I was making this list and I was like, somebody's missing. Somebody I really, really like. Somebody I got to watch a lot of is missing from this list. And then I remembered back and I thought, wow, honestly, this guy should have been Super Bowl MVP the way he played.
Interesting.
So, at number 7, I have Levante David's teammate, Mr. Devin White. Now, my problem with your ranking.
This is a Tim and Dakota list because I do have Devin White, obviously.
I know you,
but
as soon as you hinted at it a couple of picks ago, and I was like, because you said 2 teams, I was like, I knew he was going to have them. My problem is I looked at this and I had Devin White at 7, Dionne Jones at 8. I was like, I can't possibly put them ahead of Levante David and Demario Davis. Like, they're phenomenal young linebackers, but I know, like, Levante and Demario, sure, they're, in their 30s. I would not be surprised if after this year they take a bigger drop on our list for the future. But coming into this year, I have no reason to think that Levante is going to drop off, that Demario is just going to drop off. I think they still got a good year left in them right here.
Fair enough. I hear you there.
But yeah, my only also the reason I couldn't have Devin White higher is that he is a liability in coverage right now, where he's at it in his career. Very, very poor in pass coverage. I think PFF said he was like one of the worst starting linebackers in pass coverage or something. But I'll give you that. But like, as someone who like grew up like playing football, watching football, like he's such a pure athletic football. Like he's so fun to watch. He's so strong. He's so talented. He runs like a 4.3 or something insane. He's so fast, which is kind of funny that he sucks in coverage because you think someone who's that quick would be better in coverage. But if you go back and watch, for anyone like listening, if you go back and watch the Super Bowl against the Chiefs, he was blowing up every play. Just look for number 45. He was blowing up every play. He should have been MVP. He was balling. But yeah, if he can just get that coverage to be, middle of the road where he's not a liability and he can just focus on his insane tackling and getting pressure and just making plays, then he'll grow up this list. I think he'll be up there with another guy I have a little higher, and those two will kind of cement themselves as like the future here. But I love his upside. It's phenomenal upside. Just gotta work on the coverage. So Devin White at 7.
I gotta say I love the fact that we both had teammates at number 7. I had David, you had White, because that's just quintessential. You love your old guys and I like my young guys. And obviously I won't repeat it now because I've already embedded it in your head amount of times I've said it, how I rank my rankings.
I just want someone I'll start with team with.
Yeah. But my most important part of that ranking is what I expect them to do next year. And this is why I look so favorably on young guys, because I am more optimistic for young guys going forward than I am older guys. I believe Devin White is 23, 24, if I'm correct. I don't remember the age on top of my head, but he's also in a perfect pairing with Levante David, where I feel like Levante David does the coverage stuff and he's more short tackler. where Devin White is just more of a playmaker. He's a great pass rusher. He makes plays. So I think that, like he kind of also like Levante David is almost the safety net because Devin White is just going to be a superstar and just make plays where Levante David will just make up for any mistakes that happens from that over aggressive mentality.
So when Levante David starts, getting too long in the tooth and starts, struggling and isn't able to react as fast and make strong tackles and play well in coverage, what's going to happen with Devin White? Is he going to be able to step up, you think? Or is he, now that he's the guy and he has to handle more responsibilities? That's where I came at looking at like how phenomenal that defense is and what's built around them, that Devin White right now can get away with that shitty coverage, but it's not going to last. He's got to improve on it. So
fair enough. And listen, I hear what you're saying. And I'm going to go back to the most important part of this whole thing. And I'm sure it's what made you cringe when you were doing these rankings, when you looked at it. But when you looked and saw the fact that Devin White was 23, I think he is, did you just immediately cringe at the fact that there's a young player dominating and it wasn't a 10-year vet? The thing is, he's so young. He's gonna get better. Like he's continuously gotten better every year. And of course, like, don't get me wrong. If Levante David takes a step back, that'll hurt. Because listen, I love Levante David. I'm the one-man band for his Hall of Fame, enshrinement. I've been preaching his Hall of Fame career since last year. But David's still there, and let's be honest. Who's the best player on that defense? Who's the future of that defense? Who's that heartbeat of that defense? It's Devin White. You could say, the spiritual, the emotional, the leader, whatever. It's Devin White.
No, Levante David is the heart of that defense right now.
Devin White is 23 years old. He's going to learn how to get better. He already just won a Super Bowl, and he's already awesome.
He's awesome. No, he will. I'm not saying he won't. I'm just saying for right now, he's second in line to the throne, but, David is on the throne already, so he's got to wait his turn.
Hey, listen, like I said, I like to be a year early. You like to be a year late, so that's how we keep it. So that's fine. And you're consistent. I'll give you this. You're consistent.
Final thoughts on him is just, the stats are just all over the place. 95 solo tackles. He had 9 sacks, which is nuts for a stand-up linebacker.
We're gonna ignore that, I guess.
But he's in my top 10. Because I can only imagine the shit you would have written me if I didn't have him in my top 10.
I would have never stopped. I would have. You've been clocking into work tomorrow, and I would still be yelling at you.
PFF didn't like him very much. They had him in the 20s, but they must have been smoking some kind of.
Because you know what? And I'll give him this. He is. Don't forget, he's a 23-year-old player. He's a superb athlete. The 9 sacks for an off-ball linebacker is something you can't make up. Yeah. But I also understand he's overly aggressive. You got to understand, this guy's just super fast. He just runs so fast. He just moves all over the place. Sometimes he gets over aggressive. Sometimes he makes a bad read. And the fact that he plays next to a Hall of Famer in Levante David, he covers up some of the mistakes, helps him. But he's 23 years old. He's going to clean that up. I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't make a significant jump in cleaning up that stuff this year.
I hope he does. It's his. For, like you said, for an off-ball linebacker, his pass rush grade was an 85.9, which is nuts. But then his coverage grade is a 39. So,
but you know what? He doesn't have to cover. Levante David does that, and I think that's more of. And I hear what you're saying. It's more of a product of where he's at, because his weaknesses aren't something that he has to do very often. Levante David takes care of his weaknesses. They are the best linebacker tandem in the league. Obviously, I mentioned.
I'd say so. Yeah.
Edmonds and Milano, but White and Levante David are just miles ahead of anyone else.
Fair enough. All right, so when you announce them, we don't even have to talk about them because we already did. So.
Oh, I'm still going to talk about, but yeah, I'll keep it short.
Right,
on to number 6. So I want to take a moment. Actually, this is relevant. I know I say stuff, and you're like, Tim, is this relevant to anything we're talking about? And you're, I just want to let you know it is relevant. So I got this nice 12-pack.
Okay.
Brewdog's the brewery. It's nice. Okay. It's good stuff. I got a 12 pack, a variety pack. And then,
variety
before
pack?
You kill me, before you kill me, there's certain words that certain humans aren't good at. Variety is one of the words I'm not great at.
Variety? Okay.
So
I thought you said Viagra at first, and I was like, they're putting Viagra in beer now? Like that's too much for me.
Good. So this Brewdog Variety 12-pack I gotta say,
Variety.
they had. This is the first time I ever had it. They had 12 different beers in their Variety pack. 12 different beers.
Really? Usually it's like 3 or 4 different types. That's interesting.
I agree. That's why I was shocked. I saw 12 beers and I was like, done. Give me 12 different beers. Why not? And there's a whole bunch of there's like 3 seltzers, a couple IPAs. There's a tropical milkshake IPA. I don't know what the hell that's going to taste like.
IPA.
We haven't gone that far yet. After these rankings, I'll let you know how it tastes. But
we're gonna have a top 12, whatever that company is, beer ranking.
Brewdog. Oh yeah, I'm not. It's not bad. It's pretty good. What am I drinking right now? I'm drinking the Hazy Jane. You know, it's not bad. It's good stuff.
Hazy Jane. I think. I think Sam. Is it Sam? I think Sam Adams has a winner 12-pack. That's like 6 different beers. That's the farthest I've gone. So
I got that in a Secret Santa once. Yeah, but I mean, this is the first time I ever seen 12 different beers in a 12 variety pack ever.
Right.
So with that said, you're probably like, Tim, what are we talking about? Getting back to a guy that you completely disrespected, not Devin White. My number 6 is a Mr. I do everything. Because just like I have a 12-pack full of everything I could ever dream of between tropical milkshake IPAs, seltzers, the Hazy Jane, I got a guy who, first off, was a second-team All-Pro last year. He had 18 tackles for loss. Second overall in the NFL. The only one that had more than him was TJ Watt. But he's also, as you mentioned briefly, because you wanted to keep this short because you realized it was an idiotic ranking, he was number 4 ranked coverage linebacker in the NFL by PFF. So you got a guy that gives you 18 tackles for loss, which is the most of any off-ball linebackers, and he's also the 4th ranked coverage guy in off-ball linebackers. He gives you a little bit of everything. Mm-hmm. He's a young guy that I'm not going to disrespect like you did. He was a top 10 pick. So I went with Chicago Bears' own Roquan Smith at number 6.
Okay. I mean, sure. He's
now
top
that
10.
I educated,
he's 100% top 10. I don't know if I'd put him ahead of Levante David and Demario Davis. I'd be comfortable with him at like 7, but
listen, like I said, most of it's what I'm doing next year. I'm a year early where you're a year late. Demario Davis and Levante David, they're incredible players. David, I'm preaching and I will still continue to preach. He's a Hall of Famer. Davis, I don't know about that. He's a Hall of Famer with the Saints. He was irrelevant all the years before that.
Okay.
But I think Roquan Smith is going to be better. And when you're talking about he has the most tackles for 18 tackles for loss, the only one that was better was TJ Watt. Like that's a lot of players. And that's not just off-ball linebackers. That's all players. That's Aaron Donald. That's Myles Garrett. That's every player in the NFL. And he's also the 4th best coverage linebacker by PFF. So it gives you a little bit of everything, just like Brewdog does in their 12 variety pack. He's incredible. I dropped that one more time just so you can giggle. But he's incredible. He's a guy I think is going to be better. And I already told you this earlier. If he was, I believe he was 8th overall. He was top 10 pick. If you found any diehard Chicago Bears fan and said, how do you feel about Roquan Smith? He's obviously high draft pick, high expectations. I think he's met all of them, probably exceeded some of them. He was a second-team All-Pro this year. He's incredible. He's very good. I think he's going to keep climbing this list. Next year, he's probably going to be even higher, but he's very good. I'm a little bit, maybe I'm a year early, but I'm better than being a year late like you. So that's my number 6.
Like I said, I like his trending towards, his positive upwards, but positive upwards. That now I'm speaking like you. But I'm looking at my list here. 7, 8, 9 was Devon White, Dionne Jones, Roquan Smith. I could imagine next year I'm taking those 3 up the list because I think those 3 are just going to keep getting better and better. So yeah, nothing against Roquan. I think you made a good argument for him. I think the veterans are a little more established and a little more, I know what I'm getting. I mean, not that I don't know what I'm getting with Roquan now. It's not like he's a rookie, but like I said, Khalil Mack's still in town. He's running that show. So.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I'm not going to disrespect Khalil Mack, but let's be honest. He's got such a name behind him that you always just think of Khalil Mack as a superstar. Where you could make a strong argument that Roquan Smith might be more important to that Chicago Bears defense than Khalil Mack is.
If he's a signal caller and middle of the field.
I mean, I'll put it this way: Clomac, he's doubled and triple teamed every game, which that's an important role. But Roquan Smith is the guy that makes the plays off of those double and triple teams that Clomac gets. And does his life get a little bit easier because Clomac is on his team and he's getting double and triple teamed? Of course. But at the same time, someone has to make those plays when they're available for him, and he's the guy doing it. And the tackles for loss and the pass coverage are there. He does a little bit of everything. He's incredible. He's getting better. He's a young guy. I'm a big fan of his.
I won't argue that too much. My number 6, I don't think he really needs an introduction at this point. Demario Davis, the Saints.
Oh,
so he slides back one spot. He was my number 5 linebacker last year. Unlike Tim, I still think he is a phenomenal linebacker. I still think
I thought he was a phenomenal. He's in my top 10. Okay. Let's not act like I just said he sucked. I just listen. Year early instead of year late. Just keep that in your mind when you're sleeping tonight.
I didn't know. I mean, we're not betting on these. These are just like we're looking at the best players available right now. But okay. Yeah, I mean, just like, and this is where, websites that contain data and stuff like PFF are great because it shows how like well balanced Demario Davis is. There's a 78 overall. His overall grade, no one cares about that. His run defense 78. His pass rush 82. His coverage almost a 70. All around the board, a very solid linebacker who can do it all. He's your signal caller, the heartbeat of your defense. And like you said, he came from nowhere. Like we don't even know where he was previously. A couple of probably at the Jets apparently.
I think he was riding with the Jets. Okay, I can't confirm, but I'm pretty sure he was riding with the Jets.
And then made a name for himself and helped the Saints at one point. I mean, the Saints went from, what was it, 4 years ago? They were like one of the worst defenses in the league till then, 2-3 years ago, they turned things around like snap of a finger and were one of the best defenses in the league. They were taking the ball away. He had 4 sacks this past year. Like he's still getting after it. It's not like he's getting, ancient like Tim seems to think. But
I did not say ancient.
No, I still think I can understand your sentiment that he will start to decline, which I agree with. But I think based on these past 2 seasons, like I haven't seen too much of a significant drop off that I think he'll still have another good year. So
fair enough. Hey, listen, I'm not going to make any arguments. It hurt me to put him so low because I did have him. What was it, number 5 last year? Mm-hmm. Him and Levante David, they were both top 5 on my list last year, and they really didn't do anything to deserve to be dropped. But other players just continue to ascend it. And like, there's young guys that just continue to ascend and continue to show potential and continue to get better. And let's be honest, I don't think Levante David and Demario Davis are going to get better. And that's kind of where I'm at. And I'm looking till next year. These are top 10s going into next year. And I use different factors in figuring that out. But eventually, Demario Davis and Levante David are going to fall off. Demario Davis maybe before Levante David, because Levante David is playing next to Devin White, who is correctly, in my rankings, a top 5 inside linebacker. But I don't want to give away anything yet.
Okay.
But I'm not going to kill you on Demario Davis. He is, don't get me wrong, he is a top 5 linebacker or top 6 linebacker right now. Uh-huh. It's just going into next year, I think he's going to drop off more than I do other guys. And I'm looking at next year.
Fair enough.
No, listen, no arguments to you. I understand where you're coming from. You love the guys that have been in the league for 10 years.
Who's number 5?
With that said, I got a guy who has got to be, every time we do this list, every time we do whatever position is, there's always a guy or two that I look at the numbers and we do the stat research and everything. I'm like, damn, this guy's really fucking good. And there's always a guy that's just criminally undervalued or underappreciated.
Okay.
And this is my number 5. He was number 3 last year. Again, nothing against him, just like with David and Davis. He just fell back because other guys were better.
Okay.
He was number 3 overall defender for PFF. He was number 2 in coverage for PFF. He was a second-team All-Pro. Here's his stat for you, because I'm just folding. 18 pass breakups over the last 2 seasons. That's second most among all linebackers. He played for a defense last year that his own head coach said it was the worst that he's ever coached ever. So that kind of hurts his rankings a little bit. But okay, he is consistent. He's been incredible every year. incredibly underrated. He's a one-time Pro Bowl, one-time All-Pro, and that is Eric Kendricks for the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah, you're a moron. But go ahead.
I mean,
because considering I haven't heard Devin White's
name
relax.
Stop being foolish.
And you're just talking. You just said second best coverage linebacker in the league, and then you're gonna bring up Devin White in a couple picks. But okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
You know me too well.
Yeah.
Again, this is more. I mean, he missed. Here's the other thing, and this is totally justified. And I'm sure you didn't look into it because you only skim over things. He only played 11 games this year, and that was the least amount of games he's played his entire career in a season.
Okay.
Injuries are a thing. It hurts his overall ranking from last year, which is one of the pillars.
Did you notice that he actually played 14 games, but he only started 11? So he was still trying to power through them.
I'm actually looking in front of me at ProFootballReference.com, which shout out ProFootballReference.com is always on their money, and it says 11 games started. So relax there, guy.
Mine says 14 games, 11 games started. I'm also on ProFootballReference.com.
Yeah, but you get the booty version. You didn't pay the premium service like I do.
Oh, you know what? I apologize. I was looking at his rookie year. 11 games. Okay.
Here I am supposed to listen to your argument like it's logical, and you are stuck in 2015.
They normally have it the opposite way. They flipped it on me.
Listen, like most of your rankings, I assume that you do these rankings stuck in 2015. Now you're just proving that you were stuck in 2015. But I mean, he had 3 interceptions last year, 107 tackles, combined tackles, 4 tackles for loss. Nothing against him. His team, obviously, I think showed how valuable he was because they struggled mightily when he got hurt. And, nothing really against him. It's just he missed games. And this is the most games he's missed in his career. And that kind of hurts
against him, but I'm going to hold this against him.
Well, he didn't play. So, that's what happens. His team didn't make the playoffs. They had a disappointing season. His coach literally came out, said it was the worst defense he's ever coached. And probably correlates with the fact that he missed games. But, he's a stud. He's easily the most underrated player at this position, without a doubt. He is the guy. Every week we do this, as I already mentioned, that there's a guy that I find that's super undervalued, and it's Eric Kendricks. He covers well. He tackles well. He makes so many incredible plays. His ranking slides a little bit from last year because last year wasn't that great for him, mostly due to the injuries he missed, and his team struggled mightily when he was gone. But other guys had better years, and I think they're going to have a better year going forward, and I'm sticking to that. So that's my number 5. So let's crack your your top 5. What do you got for me?
I don't know about that. All right. My number 5 is Mr. Disrespected Levante David.
Wow, really? You went high.
I look at this, and so he slid back 1 spot. He was 4 last year. He's 5 this year for me.
Oh, okay, I was gonna ask, where'd you had him last year?
Yeah.
Okay, so we both had him at number 4. Look at that.
Yeah. Same thing. He's like exact same as Demario Davis to me. It's just like does it all. Heartbeat, like leader of the defense. Sure, he's in his 30s. I'm sure this won't be his best year. And he's not some rising young guy, but you like to brag about Super Bowls. He was one of the. Think about this. Do you think Devon White would be as talented as he is if he didn't have a leader like Levante David to help kind of groom him into the player and let him run wild like a wildebeest, like a wild, majestic gazelle? No. So I just look at that and I think what he's able to do to help. I mean, JPP had a phenomenal year. Barrett had a great year again. So
Vita Vea. Wait, can we name drop Vita Vea as we always do?
Sure, he had a great year because he's supported by a phenomenal middle linebacker. I think I wouldn't be, like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if him and Demario drop off after this year, and start to slowly decline. But I can't see them just like dropping from my 5-6 to like 10-11. Like I think they're still bona fide beasts. And like you said, like for whatever reason, whether it's because he was playing with, Bobby Wagner and Luke Keithley, like Levante David just doesn't have the Pro Bowl awards and accolades like that to back up his numbers, but it's a phenomenal career so far. He's definitely still one of the most slept on, I would say, defenders in the league, but I'm comfortable with having him at 5, and I think he deserves to be ahead of his teammate, Devin White, but that's my spiel.
I mean, fair enough. I'll answer you on this. I agree with what you said. Would he be as good on a different team without Levante David next to him? Of course not, because Levante David is a Hall of Famer. Obviously, playing next to a Hall of Famer makes everything better. I agree with what you said. He does play a little reckless, but when you're 4'3", 40 speed, and you can just get wherever you want to go, and you have instincts that are like a great white shark, do you blame the guy? He just sees things and he goes for it. And yeah, you're right. Sometimes Levante David kind of, he's the veteran, he's the smart guy. He sees things and he clears it up. So yeah, I'll agree with you that Devon White probably wouldn't be nearly as good. I won't say nearly as good, but he probably wouldn't be as good as he is now if he wasn't playing next to Levante David. But you could say that about any player in the NFL, about any position. If they played next to a Hall of Famer, they would be much better than they are now. But I'm glad that you name dropped him again, because guess what we're going to roll right into? And I know we've been eagerly waiting for it.
Oh, man.
Number four. And you know what?
Number 4.
You know what? Can I say one thing? I was mentioning he was 23, 24 earlier when you foolishly ranked him at what, number 8 was it?
7.
7, yeah, idiotic. He's 22 years old. Do you know what 22 years old is, Dakota? Imagine you at 22 years old. Your beard was shorter and your hangovers were even shorter than that. This guy is only getting better.
Yeah.
Let's go over. Yeah. You already mentioned a little bit. He had 15 tackles for loss. Obviously, I've already ranted and raved about Roquan Smith's 18. 15 tackles for loss, which is second for the position. He had 9 sacks. Find me an off-ball linebacker getting 9 sacks. Just find me one. And then when you do, which doesn't exist, let me know if they're 22 years old. He was a second-team All-Pro. And here's what I wanted to get to. Because do you remember when we did offensive tackles last year? And we had, I don't remember off the top of my head where I had Mitchell Schwartz ranked. I think we both had him ranked pretty high. But what I basically based most of my argument about Mitchell Schwartz was he was dominant during that playoff run when they won the Super Bowl. I don't think he gave up a quarterback pressure in the whole 3 games they had on the way to winning the Super Bowl. He was dominant, and he made my rankings for that. Devin White during the playoffs, as you already alluded to earlier, he should have been Super Bowl MVP if he didn't play, on the same team as the greatest player ever who just switched teams. It didn't matter if Brady got shot in the kneecap at halftime. He was winning MVP if they were winning.
Yeah.
His playoff stats through 3 games: 38 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, 2 interceptions, 2 forced fumbles, or 2 fumble recoveries, I'm sorry. And as you mentioned on the Super Bowl, he was all over the place. He was where Patrick Mahomes didn't want him. Anywhere Patrick Mahomes didn't want Devin White, that's where he was. The guy's a beast. He's got to clean up some things. And you mentioned, obviously, because you like to bring down young guys instead of empowering them like I do. He does have to clean up some things. His coverage isn't great. He does miss tackles, and he is in wrong spots sometimes. But I think that's just the over-eagerness of being 22 and being supremely athletic and incredibly fast. You can literally go from there to there in a blink of an eye. It doesn't matter if it's the wrong gap. You're so fast, you'll probably recover and make a play. He's going to be incredible next year. The fact that you have Levante David over him is idiotic. Levante David, sure, is awesome. He's a Hall of Famer. But next year, lie to me, Dakota. Look at me through Zoom. Look at me in the eyes and lie to me and tell me Levante David's going to be better than Devin White next year.
I think they'll be the same spot. I think they'll both be neck and neck.
There we go. I can't believe you lied through me on Zoom like that. I thought we've done enough episodes like that as you could be at least classy and honest. But
see the problem. I don't always like doing these lists because you fucking jerk off these young guys. I really like Devin White. I want to root for him so bad. I want him to be the best linebacker in the league. But I have to be realistic. Like, his pass coverage is bad. He doesn't deserve to be number 4 where he is right now. If he improves upon it, at least at least enough for me to be comfortable, then yes, he'll shoot up my list. But I think bottom. What am I trying to say? Second half of my list, 5 to 10 range is fair for him. I'm looking at his 2020 stats. He allowed 83.3% of completions percentage, 8.9 yards of completion. He gave quarterbacks 109.9 rating when he was thrown at. That's not good. He allowed 3 touchdowns. That's bad. That's not the best. Listen, that's not the 4th best linebacker in the league.
I'm hearing what you're saying, and I'm not disagreeing with it. But Here's the thing.
And I do like him a lot, but I just don't think he's there yet.
Now, here's the thing. You take young guys, and you overemphasize what they're not good at instead of what they are good at. I realize that Demario Davis and Levante David, pending just another renaissance, which Demario Davis already had a career renaissance. He's already rebirthed himself in New Orleans. I don't think he's going to do it again, especially at 32. These guys, I've already seen them at their best. I don't think they're going to get better. Nothing against them. I just don't think they're going to get better. Devin White, and as you love to point out, his coverage is bad and all this other stuff. You look too much at the stuff that he isn't very good at. But again, on the team that he's on, he's not asked to cover guys because Levante David is a very good coverage linebacker. So why even bother putting Devin White in coverage when you have a guy right next to him that can do it so well? So I don't worry about the fact that Devin White can't cover because he has 9 sacks. He has 15 tackles for loss. That is something you can't ignore. I'm like, you know what? Nickname me Scott's Turf Builder because all I do is grow. I look at the young guys. And I grow with them. I look at what's going to grow about them. Bruh. I look at the 9 sacks. I look at the 15 tackles lost. I look at this guy running all over the fucking field. And I'm like, you know what? That guy's going to continue to get better. He's going to continue to grow into a nice turf. Sure, he can't cover. But you know what? Until Levante David hangs it up on a Hall of Fame career, he doesn't need to. And Levante David, last I checked, is going to be on the team next year. So Devin White's going to continue doing what he does. And his game is being super athletic, being a nightmare in the backfield, and being a quarterback's worst enemy. And that is what he's going to do. And he's going to do it in his age 23 season. And again, I already preached this multiple times. I'd rather be a year early than a year late. So when we do the same exact episode next year, I'm going to record this, put it in my memory box, and I'm going to throw it right back in your face when Devin White is the best linebacker in football.
I'm not I don't get paid to make predictions like that. I'm not a, whatever you call those, fortune tellers. I can't sit here and say that Devin White is miraculously going to improve his coverage. I can guarantee you he would not be the player he is if Levante David got hurt and sat out the whole year.
Relax. Sure. He might not be the player that he's been, but he won't be a bad player.
You can't make the argument that it's an excuse because he's still growing, even if it's a really bad attribute he's currently facing. When you say, "Oh, well, these players are phenomenal across the board, but they're old, so they're going to get worse." Like I just don't understand the logic there. Like I said, Devin White is a phenomenal player. I like him a lot, but I don't think right now where he is right now, he's better than Lamontagne David. Because I'm looking at these rankings right now, see when the season starts in second week of September. Right now, Levante David is still the better linebacker. So
fair enough. Listen, hey, you know my ranking rules. The number one most important metric.
Yes.
Yeah, the number one most important metric is what you're going to do next year. And the number two is what you did last year, because last year is a good, precursor of what you're going to do next year. And then my third one is my tiebreaker, kind of what I use to fill in, the tough rankings is if I wanted to start my team with you. But the young guys, you're going to be more optimistic next year with them because eventually Levante David and eventually Demario Davis are going to fall back. Devin White at 22 years old, I don't think he's going to fall back off of what he was already doing. I think he's going to continue to excel. But hey, I know he's not a 10-year vet, so you hate him. I understand where you're coming from. I hear it. So who is your number four?
By that standard, his pass coverage got worse from his rookie year to his second year. But
Jason Hayward effect, he won a Super Bowl, but go on.
Anyways, so my number 4 is a guy I had some trouble ranking because I think he is at times the best linebacker in the league. Last year was a little bit of a drop off for him. It wasn't like the most explosive stats that we're used to seeing from him. But I had Darius Leonard here at number 4. He was my number 2 last year. Dropped him back a little. He's still great. Yeah, he's only, what was he? He was drafted 2018, so he's like 27 years old or something like that, 26. I think he's going to be fine. I think he's going to have a great year. I wouldn't be surprised if he made the Pro Bowl, All-Pro, whatever. But just based on what I saw last year from the previous 2 seasons, I was a little disappointed Could be that, maybe it's the Colts defense was changing or they had different pieces, whatever. But again, with off-ball linebackers, it's surprising when they have such high pass rush grades, and he had an 84.6 from PFF and 2 sacks, 93 solo tackles. We're used to seeing in the hundreds for tackles for him.
Very true, yeah.
So that's why I think in the past he's kind of been that guy that just flies around the field. But I mean, like I said, this was a strictly like stat thing that I kind of looked at, and I'm kind of looking at some of the other guys is like, I think his numbers could have been better, especially what I've seen out of him. Which, I mean, what we were seeing out of him was pretty insane. So
yeah,
it's unfair to say, but yeah, I had him slide just a little bit in my list this year.
So I got to say, your transition game is smooth as ever because my number 3 is Darius Leonard. And I had him at number 2 last year. He also slid a spot on me. Nothing against him. Right. Nothing against him at all. The guy's a superstar. Mm-hmm. He big congrats for him. He signed the bag. He got a 5-year, $100 million contract. Good for him. But you know what? As you should, because let's be honest, he's 25 right now. Mm-hmm. He is already a 2-time Pro Bowler and a 2-time All-Pro, as well as a Defensive Rookie of the Year in 3-year career. Let's put that in comparison. Levante David, who is a Hall of Famer, and I will stick to that. He's a 1-time Pro Bowler, 1-time All-Pro. Darius Leonard already doubled Levante David's All-Pros and Pro Bowlers as 3 years in the league. But with that said, going back to my thing, the only other AFC linebackers on my list were my 9 and 10, Edmonds and Cunningham. So that goes back to Levante David. He's a Hall of Famer. He didn't get the awards because he's playing against. He was drafted in the same draft as a first ballot Hall of Famer that played the same position as him. And then another first ballot Hall of Famer, I would say, in Keithley overlapped him as well. But going back to Darius Leonard, didn't mean to get off him. Since he's gotten in the league, he's been an absolute playmaker. He was an All-Pro his rookie year. He doesn't miss games. He gets the ball, makes a ton of big plays all the time. He has the most forced fumbles in the league since he came in the league.
I was going to mention that. Yeah.
He gets the ball. He had 5 interceptions his second year in the league. The guy is awesome. The Colts defense is legit. And you know when it started becoming legit was when they drafted Darius Leonard. Obviously, they went on. They got a couple good guys in the secondary. They went and traded for Buckner. But that defense is, I would say, a top 10 defense right now. And that didn't happen until Darius Leonard was drafted on that team.
Agreed.
You could say the same thing like you mentioned, I think, earlier with Demario Davis and the Saints defense. But this is a guy that was drafted, came in as a rookie. He basically is Demario Davis as a rookie. He revitalized the entire team. It was an immediate impact, big play kind of guy. But where Demario Davis had a renaissance in his career when he went to a new team, Darius Leonard hit the ground running as a rookie. He is literally, I don't think you could ever dream of a better start to his career. He is on a Hall of Fame track to his career. Obviously, I went over the awards and accolades, and this guy, he isn't going anywhere. He's healthy, plays all the games. Yeah. He's huge for that team.
3 seasons.
I didn't want to move him down, but again, and like I said this with a bunch of other guys, I didn't want to move him back. It's just other guys jumped him. And he's still awesome. He's going to continue to be awesome. He's one of the best defensive players in this league right now. So I'm going to go, and he's been, since he's a rookie and entered this league, he's been one of the best defense players in the league, easily.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I just looking at his stats again real quick. I mean, past years he's had, been able to get his hands on the ball, get some interceptions. Didn't have any this year. I mean, he's still like combined. He's still like 130 tackles, which is good for him. But I just felt like he wasn't as explosive as he was in past years.
Well, he's also
it's still there. And he'll rebound.
The other thing that comes with that, and I mean, if you look at his numbers, his rookie year was the best by far in his career. He led the league in tackles. He had like 12 tackles for loss or whatever. He had like, a couple interceptions.
Hits,
like eventually they're going to catch on to you. Eventually they're going to catch on to you. And it's amazing is they've caught on to him. Like this is his 3rd year. He just finished up, and he's not putting up the numbers that he put up his rookie year, which were the best of his career. But he's still out there producing like an All-Pro, like a superstar that he is. And that's when they're double teaming now. That's when they're putting the system around you, and he's still producing. This guy is only going to get better. This is, we're already past the point where the offense is now schemed around him, and he's still producing. He's only going to get better. But with that said, break your top 3 for me. Go ahead.
My top three. So I am going to assume that our 1 and 2 are the same. I'm not sure who your 1 and 2 are, like the ranking of them, but I know they're the same people.
See, I was thinking the same thing. One of these names are going to piss me off. I can already tell. Which one is it? Is it 3 or 2?
3.
Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, so my number 3, you had him a little farther back, Mr. Eric Kendricks. And I get it, the whole injury thing is fair to make. But I mean, I just look at it as like he played, like you said, he played in 11 games, had 107 tackles combined. All right.
Yeah.
So you take 107, like we mentioned before, you're bad at math. 107 divided by 11, you get 9.7.
I never mentioned that.
Yeah, 9.7 times. So he missed what? 5 games times 5, 48. 48 plus 107 gives you 155 tackles. Oh, where does that put him? Second in the league in combined tackles. Woo. So he's still a monster. He had 3 picks. One of the highest graded pass covering linebackers. He had the most amount, I forget the number offhand, most amount of pass breakups for linebackers. All over the field. He's literally a cornerback playing linebacker, but built like a linebacker, if that makes sense. It's not the fastest guy, 4.6 speed, which is still pretty quick though for a linebacker.
Yeah.
I will say, if nothing else, he doesn't really have it's not his job to get after the quarterback, but he doesn't really get after the quarterback. He only had 1 QB hit last year. I don't even see where his sack. He had no sacks. Like it's not his role really. Whereas like a Devin White, like you want him, busting down the gates to the line and stuff. But I just think for what he's asked to do, to be the signal caller, to be the middle of that, to just take away the middle of the field and to take away your tight ends, guys running slants and stuff, I think he's one of the best. Like I said, I think him, Roquan, and Devin, Dionne Jones, arguably 2 of the best younger guys doing it. Not to say Eric's old. He's 29 or something. He was born in 92. So he's 28. But Eric Kendricks has been doing it since he got into the league. Like since he was a rookie, he's been solid, and I don't see him dropping off. So I think if he stays healthy, he'll be a top 3 inside line, the top 3 off ball linebacker. So
yeah, I have no complaints there. I'm assuming our number 1 and 2 are the same now, but I have absolutely no complaints. Like I said, I had him at number 5. Like I mean, you say I'm underrated. He was my number 3 last year. And nothing against the guy at all. Like he's a superstar. He is the most underrated off-ball linebacker by far. I have no issue with keeping him at 3. That's where I had him last year. And again, it wasn't really anything he did. It was that there was other guys that jumped in front of him, and that's kind of where we're at. And my number 2 is a guy I had number 9 last year, who's jumped in front of Eric Kendricks. Nothing against Eric Kendricks, but he jumped in front of him.
Yeah.
And this guy, man, he did. When I say jumped in front of him, he jumped in front of him. Well, first off, let's get to the point. He's 3-year veteran. He's never missed a single game. Every single game. He's 16 games every single season. And obviously, I already nicked Kendricks on that. Not saying there's anything against him, but it's something to consider. But this guy's never missed a game. He is the heartbeat of his defense. Mm-hmm. He's a first-time Pro Bowl, first-time All-Pro as well this season. He also, just like Darius Leonard, secured the bag, and he fucking deserved it because he's a superstar. He is, let me throw some PFF at you because you love it. The number 1 ranked PFF coverage linebacker.
Really?
The number 1 ranked PFF defender for linebackers. Just the number 1 linebacker from PFF. I love this defense next year. I think this whole team as itself is going to have a whole bounce back of a year. I think him, Armstead, Bosa in particular, are the makings of something strong going forward. Mm-hmm. He is the Mr. Reliable superstar. He is I don't want to give anything away, but Bobby Wagner will make an appearance on our list. He is the heir apparent to Bobby Wagner. If you tell me one guy who Bobby Wagner's been the best linebacker, he was our number one unanimous last year. He's been the best linebacker in football for the last, I don't know, since he's been in the league. This is the heir apparent to Bobby Wagner, and he's in the same division. So Fred Warner is my number 2. Obviously, I gave you all the PFF good stuff. The guy's a stud, never misses games. He had 2 interceptions this year. He had a forced fumble. Just give you a little extra sack. Yeah, just a little throw in the little extra, spaz. 7 quarterbacks hits, which was a career high for him. He also had 125 combined tackles, which is also career high for him. Again, I mentioned this with Darius Leonard, and this is another 3-year guy because he was also drafted in the same draft. Teams now know who he is. They know who Fred Warner is. They know that their defense relies on Fred Warner, especially considering Nick Bosa was out the entire season, and this was the first year that the Niners had without Buckner. The guy had probably his best year of his entire career, and he was the one guy that every team knew going into it they had to stop, and they just couldn't do it. Where Leonard, nothing against him, but let's be honest, it wasn't his best year, and that's just because he set the bar so high his rookie season.
Yeah.
But this year, everyone knew who Warner was. Everyone did. And especially with the other guys leaving, Buckner and Bosa, and he just exceeded all expectations. I think he's going to continue to get better. He deserved the contract he got. I like this guy. I love him. He's a great player. He's so good. He reminds me of Wagner. He does everything so well. He's the heartbeat of the defense. So I got Fred Warner number 2.
Yeah, I really thought, based on how you ranked players, I thought you were going to have Fred Warner at number 1. So I was pleasantly surprised. I also had Warner at number 2.
Oh, look at that.
So he was one of the few players where, so last year when we made our list, I said he would have been in my honorable mentions if we would have, had that, but he didn't make my list.
And then, wait, hold on. I'm sorry. I don't mean to cut you off. I had Fred Warner at number 9 last year. He was in my top 10. So you didn't even have him ranked? Like I said, a year early, okay, a year late.
Okay.
I beat up myself for having him at number 9, but you didn't even have him ranked. So like I said, a year early, a year late. But go on.
Anyways, as I was saying, he was one of the players that I ranked either poorly or didn't have ranked that, really surprised me as the season went on. And I was like, fuck, like, this guy's damn good. And I knew he was like, I knew of him. I knew he was an up and coming young guy, but I just wasn't ready to crown him or anything like that. I wanted to see, especially how he did, rebounding after all the injuries that the 49ers were having. And
didn't even skip a beat.
Yeah,
he was still awesome.
Yeah, so that's why I'd even have to put him at like an introductory number. Like, nope, this guy's going right up to number 2. I was like, he's a absolute beast. I will say, to the naked eye, his stats are not the sexiest. Like 125 combined tackles, I think that ranks like, it's still top 10, but it's not like, the upper echelon. It's only 1 fumble, 2 picks, they're not numbers that jump out at you, but he's not really a numbers linebacker so much as like you said, he's kind of the heartbeat of that, much in the same vein as like Darius Leonard and Eric Kendricks. So there's a trend here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, PFF loves him. He was the number 1 linebacker on PFF and in coverage as well.
I think they had Wagner number 1, but I just think, his coverage 91. So, like a smidge ahead of Kendricks. That to me is just such a telling tale of how talented a linebacker is when they can be phenomenal in coverage and still make tackles, still get after the quarterback if they're asked to. And like his pass rush grade is solid at 75. His run defense is 68. He's just, I would not be surprised if, next year, he just somehow gets even better, and then we have to supplant Bobby Wagner and say this guy's the best linebacker in the league. But
wait, hold on, I'm not going that far yet.
But
Yeah.
But yeah, phenomenal player. But he is not our number 1. So Tim, who do you think is our number 1 linebacker? Again, a repeat.
Yeah, I got to say, we were unanimous last year, and I'd have to double check the rankings, but I don't think we've had any repeat number 1s from last year to this year so far. Obviously, there's some positions that I would imagine, I would assume quarterback will stay the same at number 1. But
Zach, I think guard. I think guards were the same. Didn't we have
possibly?
the Colts guard was number one for both of us.
Yeah, maybe, but regardless.
All right, so pretend I didn't say that. Just keep going.
I'm not gonna lie, yeah, because you obviously I like to be a year early than I like to be a year late. Yeah. So yeah, when I first thought of this list, I kind of was itching to put Warner a little bit higher, even Darius Leonard. But then I look into it, and then you're like, wait a minute. Bobby Wagner is, first off, a walking first ballot Hall of Famer, but he's still easily a top 10 defensive player in this league. I mean, top 5 if you want to make the argument. Yep. He was number 2. I know you wanted to stat correct me earlier, but it was incorrect. He was the number 2 ranked linebacker for PFF. He was the number 1 rush defense PFF ranked linebacker. He was the number 1 coverage ranked linebacker from PFF. He was the number 1 pass rush linebacker for PFF. He's an all-pro this year. I want to continue talking about what he did this year, but let's take a moment. He's a 7-time Pro Bowler. He's a 6-time All-Pro. Obviously, he's a Super Bowl champion. Where do you put Bobby Wagner's one of the greatest defenders, or let's say, put it this way, one of the greatest linebackers in NFL history? Because I honestly think at this point, and I mentioned this when I said Eric Kendricks, there's always a guy that I find that's underrated and doesn't get respect when I do these rankings. And then I look at Bobby Wagner and I'm like, dude, this guy isn't just the best linebacker in football. I think he might be one of the best linebackers ever. Like, he never gets mentioned in the breath of one of the greatest linebackers ever. But you look at everything he has, and man, I think he's already there. Like, he's got the Pro Bowl, he's got the All-Pros, he's got the Super Bowl. He was the heartbeat. Everyone knows the Legion of Boom, but man, he was the heartbeat of one of the greatest defenses to ever assemble. And he hasn't missed a beat. He's been super consistent his entire career. I mean, here we are. His age, I'm sorry, what are we? His age, he's going to his 31st, 31 years old going into his next season. He's been number 1 linebacker for us this year and last year. Yeah. The guy's incredible. He's on a string of, just made his 5th All-Pro in a row. He doesn't miss games. He's never played less than 11 games in a single season. And that's
he's never had less than 100 combined tackles, which is also insane since 2020. Since 2012, he hasn't had less than 100.
He led the league in combined tackles twice. Yep. I feel like we're wasting our time by saying he's the best linebacker in football right now, because we all know that. Can we really start having the conversation? And listen, I was big on Levante David in the Hall of Fame. Can we honestly start having the conversation of Bobby Wagner is one of the best linebackers to ever play the game of football?
I'll say this. 2 things. For one, I think you flipped your stats. His coverage is pretty good, not the best. I think you're talking about his run defense.
I was talking about a lot of things. So
yeah, he's a phenomenal run defender.
I'm sorry. Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah. He was number 1 in run defense. He was number 1 in pass rush. I apologize. He was not number 1. I'm sorry. He was number 2 overall linebacker, number 1 run defense, number 1 pass rush. Because number 1 in coverage is Fred Warner, and I had their stats right next to each other.
Well, that's just PFF's player grades. They had Wagner as their pick for number 1 though, in their written article I saw. Anyway,
honestly, go on. I'm gonna cut you off.
I was thinking about this as we were talking a couple picks ago, and I was like, Bobby Wagner is the Ray Lewis of this decade, but he's better than Ray Lewis.
He just doesn't dance. That's the only thing. That's the only reason he doesn't get the respect. If Bobby Wagner did the Ray Lewis dance and he was on a team like the Legion of Boom, listen, Ray Lewis and Bobby Wagner both on one of the greatest defenses ever in the history of the NFL. Both of them are. But you know what? One is quiet, and listen, you ever talk about Bobby Wagner when he's on a team with Richard Sherman, Earl Thomas, and Cam Chancellor, and Michael Bennett? No one talks about Bobby Wagner, but the guy's awesome.
I mean, I'm not trying to shit on Ray Lewis, because obviously he was one of the best, but
of course,
to just compare them in the aspect of, think of watching Bobby Wagner, and there's certain things he does movement wise that Ray Lewis can't. Ray Lewis was never the quickest guy. Phenomenal run defender, phenomenal tackler, forcing fumbles, gets after the quarterback. But Bobby Wagner, for his size, is pretty nimble and is able to move around. And I would not want to even run anywhere into his direction if I was running back.
Yeah, I agree. Like Ray Lewis was awesome in run defense because he was built like a tank, but it was also a different NFL when he was playing.
For sure.
Bobby Wagner is the perfect linebacker in this stage of NFL. He can cover, he can play the run, he can do everything. It's time because you talk about best linebackers in the history of football. Bobby Wagner is never mentioned. It's time that you mention him with Ray Lewis, with Dick Butkus, with Jack Lambert, with Junior Seau, with, whatever linebacker you want. This guy is one of the best linebackers to ever play football. And it's about time he gets the respect. Shit, I feel like Patrick Willis gets more respect than Bobby Wagner does. And if you want to talk career to career, in fact, Bobby Wagner's been doing it longer than Patrick Willis, or he will do it longer. I think after this year, he'll have a longer career.
Patrick Willis was 9 seasons.
Yeah, but you know what? I feel like Patrick Willis is a guy, and he was awesome. And don't get me wrong, he was a 6-time All-Pro, 7-time Pro Bowl, just like Bobby Wagner was.
Yeah.
But this is a guy that when he's in his 30, he's going to his 31st season. He's easily the best linebacker on this in the NFL, without a doubt.
His 31st season.
Well, you know what I meant. 31st season on this planet. I screamed out. I'm a legacy guy. I do like my young guys, and I look for the future, but I'm a legacy guy. I preached for Levante David to be respected as a Hall of Famer last year. And this year, I'm preaching for Bobby Wagner to be respected as at least the top 10, maybe top 5 best linebacker to ever play this game.
His 31st season on this planet. That's great. I think somehow he's still underrated, even though people know he's the best linebacker in the league.
He is underrated because he's one of the best linebackers to ever play the game, and no one puts his name in that.
Yeah, especially if you look at like the Seahawks went through a phase where their pass defense was almost as bad as the Cowboys. But if you looked at what was happening, is that they were just giving up like huge chunk plays down the field. And Bobby Wagner is not responsible for that. He's taking away the short field in the middle, and he had 23 some QB hits or QB pressures. Like they were asking him to pass rush a lot, and he was getting after it. It's just their secondary couldn't hold up with all the injuries and stuff. So
he literally does everything. And you know what? He's been through. We want to talk about the Legion of Boom, how Russell Wilson's the only guy after the region, but like Bobby Wagner's the only guy on that defense since Legion of Boom, and he's holding it together. He has not skipped a beat. He was the heartbeat of one of the greatest defenses ever, and now he's continuously to be the incredible player that he has been. But his team isn't as great around him, and that's the only difference. Nothing about him has slipped off. He is one of the best linebackers to ever play the game.
I mean, Legion of Boom. Obviously, me being a secondary guy, I loved that generation, and Cam Chancellor, Brown are obviously 2 hard-hitting secondary players, but I'll tell you right now, I would rather get hit by one of those 2 than I would Bobby Wagner. I don't want him coming near me.
Without a doubt.
Yeah. He is the boom.
Oh, yeah. It's, he'll be a guy that is missed when he's gone because he's been undervalued his entire career. Mostly playing on a team with a lot of big personalities, like I said, with Sherman and Thomas and all those guys. But he is one of the greatest to ever play the position, and I don't feel like he gets the respect. He gets the respect as the best linebacker now, but as an NFL great, that's where he's lacking, and that's what he needs. But he's my number 1. He was my number 1 last year, same as you. He is easily a top 10 linebacker in the history of the NFL, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think. Number one on our list, number 1 in a lot of stats, and obviously, most important, number 1 in our hearts.
It's true. Big hearts.
But yeah, I think he's still got enough in the tank that he will keep it going. So I'm not too worried at all.
Yeah, he's just giving me no reason to think he's going to slow down, so I don't think he will.
All right. I think that wraps up for the linebackers. I don't think you had anything else to add, but strong list. A lot of young guys. A lot of young guys are starting to push.
You probably hated it. You hated every second of it.
We're going to see a new wave of young guys coming in to supplant some of the old vets. So it's exciting. I mean, room for them. We'll see what happens. But all
right. It's been real.
All right. Until next time.
See ya.